Hi, welcome to Life of Poet. I am Poet. I go by Zizipho, and this is the first letter to you, whoever you are. Thank you for coming along with me. You have now become part of my journey. I hope we witness each other with love and kindness. I write to you to introduce myself, to reclaim my space. I write to you to answer the call to create and to engrave something of wonder and grace into this here space. Welcome to Life of Poet. The story begins with a thick two-choir book filled with my thoughts before the school term even began. Yes, I loved to write that much. And I was trying to create an alternative world for myself. The moment I learned and I discovered that my hands could make things, I did not want to stop. I mean, who wants to stop when you found a remedy for the itch or the keys to the doors of creativity? I had tapped into an ability that made me feel me. Like, that is obviously what I'm meant to be doing. The feeling of affect is indescribable. It's a moment of deep connection and knowing. You can't quite distinguish yourself and the elements around you. You dissolve into spirit and you just flow. I know I was meant to be an artist. From the time I wrote my first poem in grade 5 to sketching an onion in natural science class and feeling good about it. And the many, of course, upcycled clothing I went on to wear in my teens. I knew I was chosen, called, or required, almost destined to create. I am 30 this year, and now I create through poetry mostly. Sometimes through experiences, food, drawing, and through love. Always through love. Poetry, though, is my first love. I'm curious to know, what is your first love? What's your deep knowing about yourself? Writing this letter to you, I am sitting at the beach after a poetry in motion class by my friend Paige, and I feel warm and free. I plan on having these conversations with you about the wonders of the world, the wonder that you are. Hi, I want to respond with a poem from my poetry collection, Sunflowers for My Lovers. And the poem doesn't have a title. I think it's the only poem in the book that does not have a title. Okay, let's just go. I don't know. I think it's about like reading to you. That's like so intimate. It makes me shy. I wonder what poets name their children, what gifts they pass on to them. I am yet a metaphor to become, still a simile to compare, a name, a noun enough to be proper. I still have a happily ever after love poem to meet and say yes to. Snap, 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 snap. Yeah, that's the poem. I thought this was an appropriate response to what is your inner knowing. And I think that it has a lot to do with my name, like, which is the inner knowing. It's the first knowing I've known about myself. The first thing I was certain of myself was my name. And so unpacking that and thinking about like Zizipho and what are the many gifts that I possess. Zizipho means many gifts. Um, and so what are those gifts? And how do I possess them? How do I carry them? How do I hold space for them? And so the poem kind of unpacks that um, from a kind of bird's eye view of, what my parents were thinking when they named me, and what gifts they wanted to pass on to me, and how I ended up becoming a poet, you know? And so I think a lot of those gifts are words. I was gifted with words, and creativity and wonder and curiosity, and joy, you know, and peace. Um, a happily ever after love poem to meet and say yes to, you know. I think that I some of my desires is um, to be love. Um, so yeah, that's the poem, and I'd love to hear yours. You're more than welcome to use this as a prompt. The YouTube channel was inspired by a fellow YouTuber. Her name is Neka. I'm going to put her channel over here. And she writes these letters to strangers, and us being the strangers. So I thought I would love to respond to some of those. And one that really caught my eye was answering the call to create. And this is me answering the call and kind of crafting a space where I can create, but can also respond to creativity and the process and the inner workings of what that looks like. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you and what your inner knowing is. Thank you for making room for me at your table. Till next time, love, Zizipho.